Cellular respiration, that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a very, very interesting process. I know how excited you all are to learn about cellular respiration. If you want to get right down to the nitty-gritty, the base of the word is cell, which means it has something to do with those small little things swimming around in your body known as cells. Cellular means that it has something to do with some kind of process. And respiration comes from the word. What do you think? What does respiration come from? It comes from the word respire. Respire is such a cool word. If you look at it and you take out the prefix spire, if you take out the prefix re, all you're left with is spire. And spire comes from an old word that some of you may have heard from called spirit. And spirit has a lot of religious context and a lot of other things that to go along with it. But if you think about spirit as it is, what it really means, if you get down to the nitty gritty of it, spirit really just means to breathe, to breathe, to breathe. Just and so cellular respiration, based on that definition, we know that it has something to do with breathing. And cellular respiration is an aerobic function. Aerobic, for those of you guys who have forgotten, is when you have those cool little weights in your hands or some kind of thing where you're exercising aerobically. It's where it gets your heart rate up. And again, if you look at the first three letters in aerobic, they are A-E-R. If you take the E out of AER and put in an I, you get, that's right, air. And air is oxygen, and therefore aerobic means you need air to complete a chemical reaction. Okay? So remember, AER, if you take out the AER, if you take out the E in AER for aerobic and put an I, you get air. And air means that you need air to complete an aerobic reaction. So now let's talk about the nitty-gritty of the actual cellular respiration. So you start off with 6 carbon molecules and they break up into two. There's basically 2 3-carbon molecules and they get broken up in glycosis and they enter into cellular respiration in something called the mitochondria. That little thing that looks like a jelly bean is the mitochondria. And as those three carbons go inside, and out comes 6 CO2s and some ATP after all the everything that happens. And the energy carrying molecules, like in the ATP, transfer to stage 2, which is the electron transport stage. Energy carrying molecules from glycosis and the Krebs cycle enter stage 2 of cellular respiration. All right? So we have some energy from glycosis still, and we also have an oxygen, and we know that we have to have oxygen because aerobic means air, and you have to have air for aerobic, and air comes from oxygen. All right, and here's a question you'll probably see on your exam. What are the reactants and products in cellular respiration? Well, we already found out earlier, if we go back in our thing, that CO2 is one of the things that we get, which is the opposite of photosynthesis, right? It's a reactant in photosynthesis. So our first product is CO2, and we're going to put in oxygen, so we know that oxygen is a reactant because that's what we're putting in. And we also know, if we look back, we're putting in carbon. So we're putting in carbon, and we're getting out CO2, and we're putting in oxygen, and then we are going to go through the inner membrane, and out on the other side, we're going to get some ATP and water. All right, so ATP molecules are produced, heat and water is released as waste products, and that is basically, in a nutshell, cellular respiration. You're welcome.